Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Here we have Aware with Eduphoria and Region 10, and we're talking about Axiom for 2026 accountability. Just a heads up, this webinar is being pre-recorded, so if you do have questions, please shoot those off to the contacts you'll see throughout the email, throughout this presentation and at the end of the presentation. Our hosts today are myself. I'm Dr. Jeremy Wagner. I am a product manager for Aware. Also joining us from Region 10 is Paige Strickland and Dr. Amanda Walker, who are some of our best experts in accountability. Once again, this meeting is being pre-recorded. Please visit our YouTube channel for additional content. You can find us at youtube.com/eduphoria videos. And don't forget, send questions into training@eduphoria.net. Our agenda today is pretty simple. We're going to start by asking the question, what is Axiom? If you've been with us before, and if you have had Axiom in the past, this first part will be mostly a review, but it'll be good to tune in and make sure that you're still caught up on the essentials of accountability, changes to the rules, et cetera, et cetera. And then we're going to jump into Axiom 2026 updates. How has Axiom changed? How has it not changed? What reminders do you need to get it configured? And then finally, we're going to jump into the Axiom user interface and take a quick dive into what the domains look like and what some of the tables look like. So getting us started, let's ask that question. What is Axiom? At its core, Axiom is a projection tool trying to assist school districts to decide kind of where might they land with accountability scores in Texas accountability. Axiom provides overall and domain scores and rating projections based on available data only. And that's why we really want to emphasize that this is a projection tool and not a guaranteed you're going to get this score kind of tool. You really want to think of it more like an instructional tool and ask yourself questions like, how can I use this information to help make instructional decisions in my district or on my campus? Axiom provides plenty of reports and graphs for various uses and student level data options for monitor group creation. And that monitor group creation can be used in other portions of the software. The difference between Axiom and just aware reporting, which aware reporting can do a lot of what I just talked about, is when we use things like quick views and monitor groups. Quick Views really is looking more at like the local data and helping you make instructional decisions in the moment. Whereas Axiom is more of a summative view, looking at that state level data and trying to make sweeping instructional decisions, looking at trends at a larger set and more summative kind of perspective. And then keep in mind that aware reporting and Axiom, neither of them are things that are meant and intended to provide actual district or campus ratings. Only TEA can assign those and distinctions. Third-party projections, including Axiom and any other software, should not be presented to something like your school board. This is something that is based on, like I mentioned before, data that is available in the system. And so there's information missing, and there's a veritable certainty that there is information missing that can have massive impacts on accountability calculations. So keep that in mind as you're using this and don't think, I'm just going to print up everything and I'm going to show this to the school board and we're going to change absolutely everything this summer to prepare for the next year. Wait for those accountability reports to actually be reported by TEA to verify what you're saying is true. But that doesn't mean you can't use Axiom to start making some high level, just like conscious evaluations of where are we? What's happening? How has it changed from last year? And what can we potentially start preparing for and thinking about to get ready for the next year? Here we have a just a couple of hot links built into this slide where you can look at state roles and resources that have been provided. Once you get this, once you actually receive this slide deck, these links will be live, but you can actually click on them and go into the TEA 2026 Accountability Rating System information. The 2026 Accountability Manual takes you straight to those websites, and even the TEA Help Desk. And keep in mind when you're accessing the manual can be accessed as a whole or by individual chapters. So dive into the pieces and parts that you find most helpful and use these resources to help you piece together what is Axiom telling you and maybe not telling you. And now to help answer that question, when's Axiom going to actually be ready? I'm going to pass it over to Amanda, and she'll tell us a little bit more.
Yes, Axiom is aiming for early June for all updates to be available and ready for your data files. You can click on the link provided to access the reporting for the Texas Assessment Program, which includes all of the dates for assessment results, the administration reports for data verification, and the final administration reports for accountability. It is important to note that the administration reports for data verification may be used as an initial indicator of district and campus accountability ratings. Those dates are included on this slide as we eagerly await. Keep in mind that only TEA can assign ratings, so this data within Axiom would be a projection and can be utilized to inform instructional decisions. The 2026 Accountability System visual is provided for you here. You may click on the image to access the electronic version. As you know, our accountability system has 3 domains. Domain 1, student achievement. Domain 2, school progress, which has 2 parts. Domain 2A, academic growth, and Domain 2B, relative performance, and of course, Domain 3, closing the gaps. Campus type is very important in A through F accountability, so hopefully this visual will assist you with the weights and components of accountability for each campus type, including the alternative education accountability campuses on page 2. TEA has some very helpful resources on their 2026 Accountability Rating System webpage, linked for you here, including the 2026 Accountability Manual, the System Framework, and the A through F Academic Accountability System Overview, as shown here. This resource pairs nicely with that Region 10 Accountability System visual for a quick overview of the accountability system. Please note the blue box, which contains the summary of the 2026 items. A lot of these pieces were previously communicated in the prior accountability manuals. As you can see here, the summary of 2026 included some previously communicated changes, including those related to CCMR as listed here, and changes to be implemented in 2026 due to data availability, such as military enlistment, which is related to CCMR, and also the progress in achieving EL proficiency, where that progress is measured using the TELPAS composite score for the progress to achieving EL proficiency indicator in the closing the gaps domain. Axiom also utilizes resources and data from the TEA 2026 Accountability Rating System webpage, including the 2025 data download, and this aids in the comparison data within Domain 3, closing the gaps. Also, the 2026 campus 3 through 12 enrollment membership list for the proportionally weighted district rating, and economically disadvantaged rates utilized throughout accountability, and especially in Domain 2B, relative performance. Axiom also took the 2025 TELPAS Composite Scores overview into consideration, as this methodology is utilized to compare 2025 composite to 2026 composite results for progress in achieving EL proficiency in Domain 3, closing the gaps. The performance targets will also be updated within Axiom. The students listed in each school's final accelerated tester student listing are also included in the STAR components of accountability. So click on these links here to learn more. Also, the accountability subset rule is utilized. Again, these resources are just a click away at your fingertips. In addition to the necessary data files to upload that Jeremy mentioned, we also have a helpful data checklist or a click sheet to assist you as you manually enter the necessary data in Axiom. The manual entries are from the data files retrieved from Teal Accountability application. Not everyone in a school system has access to teal accountability, but if you do, it will be listed when you log in to your teal account. You will need to gain access to graduation rate data in order to enter the 4-year, 5-year, and 6-year longitudinal rates. This will be available June 2026. You also need the class of 2025 CCMR data. So the preliminary CCMR data file is available within the CCMR verifier during the window, which is open June 2026. The final CCMR student listing is available in August 2026. So the 2025 TELPAS composite data that became available in April of 2026 and is needed for manual entry into Axiom for the 2026 accountability year. This data is listed for each campus and includes the percentage of students who made progress in TELPAS by either scoring advanced high or basic fluency for TELPAS Alt or progress. When you click on data checklist for Axiom, it'll take you to this landing page. Notice here that in order for Axiom to have accurate calculations, you must complete the following. And the big task is to obtain all the data you need from teal accountability, including graduation rate data, CCMR data, and 2025 TELPAS data. You'll notice throughout that a click sheet is provided here. In order to enter the data, you will need that teal accountability access to download those data files, and then you will enter that data into Configure Schools. When you obtain all of the data you need, notice step 1 is to log in to your teal account. Step 2 will be to go to the Accountability tab within teal Accountability and click on your district name. Access the graduation rate information by clicking on the Research and Analysis tab in orange and then clicking on the final 2025 graduation and dropout information. From there, you will download the 4-year, 5-year, and 6-year longitudinal information. Step 5 will be to access the data needed from those reports. This is an example of a 4-year longitudinal summary report. Notice here that we have data needed for Domain 1, Student Achievement Domain, and Domain 3, Closing the Gaps. Now we need to access our CCMR data. So you can click on 2026 Final CCMR Student Listing, which will be available in late summer 2026. You'll go to the district CSV download to download the file. If you do not have the 2026 final CCMR student listing yet, because it will be released August 2026, you can utilize the 2026 CCMR verifier student listing for preliminary data. That will be released during the CCMR verifier window, anticipated late May, early June. Next, you'll need your TELPAS composite scores. From the teal accountability application, you'll select that file, then select your district and click Download Data. Now you will have all the data you need from teal accountability, including graduation rate data, CCMR data, and that 2025 TELPAS composite data. And let's mark our calendars for August 12th when districts have preliminary 2026 accountability ratings available within teal, and of course, publicly on August 14th within txschools.gov.
Let's take a dive into how you can actually configure Axiom. So we're going to take a little time to orient ourselves to Axiom's configuration. When we dive into the Axiom interface a little bit, I'm going to cover some of the basics about how Axiom and the things that you need to know to get Axiom actually going and working. And then Paige here in a moment is going to go into some of the details about the calculations and pages for each domain. So when jumping into Axiom, the first thing you're going to see is this overview page where you can see numbers for your overall scores, student achievement, school progress, and closing the gaps. This page might show some numbers, it might not, depending on whether you're a new customer and how recently you've actually conducted a recalculation. From here, navigation from this overview page is simple. You can click on the header or the title of each domain to take a deeper dive into that domain. So, for example, if I wanted to see some particulars about school progress, I can click school progress and be taken to the domain 2 page for a more detailed breakdown of how domain 2 is calculated. At the top, I can use the drop down to change it from a district view to individual school views, where the numbers will be adjusted based on the choice that you've made. School administrators, you're going to be restricted here so that you're only viewing your school's information in Axiom. Now, before Axiom will do a lot of what you want it to do, there's some configuration that needs to occur. Let's take a look at the overflow menu and hit some of the highlights real fast. The overflow menu here is the overflow menu is the three dots next to the district and school selector. There you can see where you need to configure your schools, view data files, trigger a recalculation of data, and even hide the Axiom page from school administrators. The first place to stop is the school configuration, where you're going to input some information that is required for some of the domain calculations, like attendance and then setting the school type. The next place you'll want to hit is the recalculation button. This takes some time. Once you click it, give it a good 10 to 15 minutes and come back. Anytime you change anything related to Axiom, you're going to want to click that recalculate button. The hide report button from school leaders basically makes it so that only district level users can see Axiom. This is helpful in some scenarios where the district isn't prepared for school leaders to see the data until the configuration is complete and all relevant information has been captured, recalculations have been completed, etc. In the school configuration, you can see a list of your schools on the left, and then you can make some selections for school type. Your first and second group for each school, your economically disadvantaged percentage, enrollment, and a new spot for ELP previous year score for each school. We're using resources provided by TEA, which Dr. Walker actually mentioned a little while ago on their accountability rating system page to pull numbers for school type, economically disadvantaged percentage, total enrollment, and 3 through 12 enrollment. While these numbers are coming from those resources, you have access to your most up-to-date and most accurate data for these fields. In the configure school settings, we allow you to manually change any of these numbers or selections that are made. Here you can see I've highlighted that there's that something new. The 2026 rules updated how ELP progress was calculated to look at the composite score only. In an effort to try and make comparisons and calculations as close to apples as they could, TEA also calculated the 2025 ELP progress using the same composite score method. This shifted the 2025 ELP progress scores pretty significantly for some schools and districts compared to the scores that were calculated in 2025. TEA sent those scores to each school district through Teal and did not update the score databases that Eduphoria has access to. This essentially means that without the school districts finding those numbers and manually entering them here, our calculations for domain 3 will be off if we use the 2025 scores available to us. So, this will be a new step that our veteran Axiom districts will need to account for when configuring their schools. Hopefully, this will be a 1 year deal, and subsequent years, this rule will have been in place, and composite to composite will be part of just the automatic calculations from year to year. Be sure to take the time to log into Teal, find those new scores TEA sent in for ELP Domain 3, and enter those for each school. Now, you may have noticed that high schools get an additional configuration option. In the previous page, if you click that More button, you'll see a set of tables like this one. Here you can put vital information for schools that cover high school grade levels such as graduation rates, CCMR data, federal graduation rate, and component pieces across subpopulations. Each of these numbers are needed for the best possible Axiom calculations, so be sure to capture those, enter them, and don't forget to click that recalculate once you've got these saved. Let's talk about the student list table. This table will show you a list of all of the students that have test data that is used for accountability calculations. But you can use the table to go deeper than that. You can use it to actually dive into student groups and performance using a variety of filters found at the top. And I'll show you those here in a minute. You can create monitor groups based on what you find, and you can use those for other functions in Eduphoria. It's worth pointing out that we've included a button that lets you engage House Bill 1416 filters in the student list table. This button is going to trigger filters that will narrow the group down to likely candidates for HB 1416 hours. However, keep in mind the student list table does have some limitations. When students have multiple testing opportunities in the same year, for example, filters will only work with the information that is available, so retesters can sometimes be a little finicky with that House Bill 1416 filter. A little more about the student list table. Here you can see some of the filters available for data exploration. You can filter down by performance levels on tests, schools, student demographics, and other data, including whether or not the student was included in Domain 1. Score codes, test types, subjects, whether the students are or not, whether they are or not high focus. We've introduced pagination on the student list table last year, so you can get the entire list of students rather than having it cut off. You can also have a selection to show either 25, 50, 100, or 200 kids at a time. Lastly, I want to talk about the domain summary. This particular thing will generate a quick table that shows your schools and score data that can be exported to a CSV. That might be helpful for quick references and a high-level summary conversation, but remember, Axiom is a projection tool only. Only TEA can provide actual scores, so please be careful when sharing information and making decisions based on Axiom. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Paige.
Thanks, Jeremy. So Jeremy has given us some great information on Axiom. So now let's dig into what it actually looks like with each domain. When you first log into Axiom, you will see an overview page that shows your projected calculations in each of the domains. At the bottom, you will see how it calculated it to get the overall projected score. Each of those domains are clickable. Before we go into each of those domains, though, I want to make sure to note that you will need to make sure your final files for STAR, along with your TELPAS, SAT, and ACT scores, are imported into Aware for Axiom to pull. Once I click on Domain 1, which is Student Achievement, it will show me the summary view of all the tests that were taken and the percentages. At the top, you have the option to go from a district view to the individual campuses, and you will also notice that there are different tabs that you can click on at the top left. One of those tabs is called Star Performance tab. Axiom will show your disaggregated data by subpopulations. Here's where you can find out how your 4 supergroups did on each of those tests. You can also toggle back and forth between percentages and actual student numbers over to the right. This is a great visual to help us understand where our gaps are. As you can see with all subjects, there was a pretty big drop from masters to meets. This may show me that I could potentially be a tier 1 support issue. Under the score detailed breakdown, you can click on school names to go to the student test list that was filtered to the school and domain. Here is where you will find the column Jeremy mentioned earlier to fill out for the previous year ELP score for Domain 3 from your TEAL report. Going into Domain 2, which is school progress, this summary page will show the projected overall score, projected academic growth score, and the projected relative performance score. All of the data importers needed for Domain 2A should be working. If you run into it not working, please let us know. On the Academic Growth tab under School Progress, this will show you a transition table where it will show you red for 0 points, yellow for half a point, green for a full 1 point for growth. And what's great about this table is that it is clickable. So if you want to see your droppers from masters last year to meets this year on RLA, we can click on that number that's boxed. It will give me a student list. And from there, you can create a monitor group and push it out to your staff to progress monitor those kids. As Amanda always says, we want hoppers, not droppers, and no flip-floppers, meaning going back and forth. Accelerated learning points for students that did not meet on the previous year are also included below this table, which is also clickable to give you a student list. And this leads us into Domain 3. High focus groups included in the STAR file should have helped us identify your high focus students. But please, as a reminder, go double check these groups in the configuration space for domain 3. You will also need to input your CCMR data. So, where do we find all this to input it with an Axiom? Amanda, can you walk us through how to gather this information?
Of course, yes. In domain 3, closing the gaps, supergroups are very important. You will need to check these supergroups with an Axiom for accuracy. So you can find your 2026 supergroups by going to txschools.gov. Then you enter the campus name, click on Performance, and then Accountability Overview. On the right-hand side, you will see Change Over Time, and then you're going to click on 2024, 2025. At the top in the blue header ribbon, you will see Closing the Gaps. Then click there and again on Closing the Gaps. As you scroll down on this web page, you will see the data table as shown in this example, which includes the supergroups to be evaluated in 2026 accountability.
Thank you, Amanda. Under the Calculations tab that you see here, you will need to select the campus in which you want to see the breakdown. This is where you can see those 4 supergroups that Amanda talked about and their performance and where they are compared to the targets that the state has determined for each of those categories.
Awesome. Now, let's talk a little bit about how to get support for Axiom. There are several ways that you can start. The first is we really recommend getting started with the online help guides. The online help guide articles that are housed on the Eduphoria documentation site, the knowledge base, are hyperlinked right here, where you can get a quick overview on getting started with Axiom, how to enter your domain 1 and 3 information that's needed, and then filtering student data for monitor groups, and just a big FAQ on how to utilize Axiom. Another resource at your fingertips is the Eduphoria Customer Success Team. Here you can call or email in and get some technical troubleshooting or receive and document calculation concerns. If you have accountability questions, it's always best to reach out to TEA or your local Education Service Center for accountability risk support. You can also get system setup support and live support through Region 10's help desk at that phone number and at datasolutions@region10.org.
And we are happy to announce that our Axiom Connect and Clarify webinars are back. This is your opportunity to connect with our team and ask anything related to Axiom. We will be covering Axiom Essentials, measuring Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction, student list tables, and have an office hour opportunity for you. Put these dates in your calendar and register at the bit.ly scene. We know that things come up in the middle of the day, though, so if you're unable to attend, register anyway. These will be recorded, and anyone who is registered will receive the presentation and recording at a later date.
And we would love for you to engage with us at Region 10. Here's our link to subscribe to our newsletter and consider joining us for the Accountability Summit on September 23rd, 2026. The registration link is provided there, and the call for proposals will open in August.
We have our Eduphoric 2026 conference coming up on July 15th. Last year, it was a big hit. This is free for all educators, so please spread the word to everyone who uses Eduphoria. We would love to see you there. There's a QR code that you can scan, or you can click visit the Eduphoria website to register.
If you have any final questions related to Axiom, please reach out to training@eduphoria.net or feel free to reach out to the Region 10 website we showed a few slides back. We'd like to remind you with Eduphoria, we try to provide a dedicated success ecosystem for you where we provide on-site training, the teacher learning site, webinars, online help guides, and everything we do, we try to make it tailored for you and provide daily district support. This page here has really helpful URLs to send you straight to things like the teacher learning site and direct resources to get into emails where you can request on-site training or provide even digital training and look for support. Please use this resource to help you get the resources that you need. The QR code on this page will actually send you to sign up for our newsletter, and you can get more information by always following us on our socials on Facebook, LinkedIn, Insta, X, and YouTube. So check us out there where we make semi-regular posts about things you might want to know or even just interesting things happening in education. All webinars, such as this one, are uploaded to our YouTube channel to watch at your convenience. So check us out at YouTube. And you can also use this QR code to take you straight to that website. Last but not least, calling all educators, we have the teacher learning courses available and ready today. The courses in here range from just a couple of minutes to about 6 or so minutes, where you can learn some valuable information about how to use Aware, Strive, and Beacon. If you haven't used this resource, check it out. And you can also feel free to share it if you're a district leader for training within your district. With that, I really want to thank you for watching our webinar today on Axiom. We hope you got very valuable information on how to get started with Axiom and information reminders if you've used it before, and just an orientation if you're new to it on how Axiom gives you information you can use for some of those instructional purposes preparing for the next year. I really want to give a big thank you for Paige and Amanda joining us today from Region 10. We really appreciate y'all's expertise, and I'm looking forward to presenting with you ladies again in the future.